Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. Got some great feedback on a Sony a6300 versus Nikon D500 video from Streets of Vancouver. Hello to my fellow Canadian, my fellow Canuck. He says, starting to nitpick, that's the whole point of doing fair and objective reviews. By the way, every videographer on the planet would prefer a 6K captured video image that is downsampled to 4K because you always get more micro detail in your 4K image as a result. And I would agree with that. That's why I like my 4K, even if I'm outputting to 1080, because it's the same effect. To me, it's so obvious that you are biased against the a6300. And can I mount any lens made since 1940 to a Nikon via an adapter? Nope, but I can't with he says I can't with the a6300. I think you meant to say you can. In fact, I bought a Minolta MD 28mm f2.8 last week for $70 Canadian. It has great sharpness and contrast. Nikon, on the other hand, had made their flange distance so that it would be more difficult to make third-party lenses for it. You also left out the part where the price of the D500 is exactly twice that of the a6300. Why fixate on no cheaper Sony lens when you brush over the fact that these cameras are in totally different price points? Have a good day, fellow Canadian. Streets of Vancouver makes some good points. And I'm not biased against the a6300. A lot of times when I'm discussing these things, and it's not a review, I wasn't doing a review, we're just having a chat about these two cameras and why you might consider buying one or the other, what the strengths are and whatnot. So I don't have both cameras here. So, but I'm not. I actually really like the Sony a6300. I'm considering buying one. It's probably not going to make it into my stable for two reasons. I'm worried about the overheating issues with it. So as a main camera that I use a lot for video, it's probably not going to suit my needs that way, which is disappointing because I do agree with you that it's probably got some of the best 4K out there. And also, I'm not very happy with my options for Sony lenses. Strictly for video, you're absolutely right. You can go with manual lenses and put them on via adapters. But I want to use the camera as well for photographic tools, so it doesn't really hit both bases for me. But that's me and my requirements. I can totally see why many people would think the a6300 is wonderful. I don't know. You know, a lot of people are going to say what you said about the adapters, and that's true. You can put a lot of lenses on with adapters. I think there's still, though, an awful lot of people that's not a good option for because they're not happy not having the autofocus. You know, you're essentially saying, well, it's not a problem they don't have autofocus lenses because you can use a zillion manual focus lenses. So, but then you're turning the a6300 into a manual focus camera, which is not a problem for some people, but it is a problem for a lot of people. And I would like my camera to be able to autofocus with good lens options. So, you know, there's going to be a segment that are more than happy, like yourself, to use the a63 with an adapter and all the older lenses. And I like that too. I have a lot of them for my Micro Four Thirds. But conversely, I also am able to autofocus with some very good lenses on my Micro Four Thirds. So that's why I like my G7, I think, better than the a6300. Price point. It is. It's a lot more for the D500 than the a63. But I think the lenses is a legitimate issue, and I think it is for a lot of people. I don't think we're going to have overheating issues in the D500. So while it's costing more, you get the lens options, you get the more battery juice, longer lasting battery, and most likely no overheating issues. I've never had an overheating issue in a Nikon body for video. It's first for everything, but from experience so far, never had that as an issue. Sony, on the other hand, seems to have that fairly frequently as an issue in many of their bodies for video. So, great feedback, Streets of Vancouver. I mean, there's two sides to everything, and I don't really disagree with any of your points, other than that I'm biased. I do have my reasons for not deciding to go ahead and purchase the a6300. I think it's a great little camera. If I had tons of money and didn't have to budget what cameras I have in the stable, and I could have one of everything, I'd certainly buy an a6300. I like it. However, I want a camera that also autofocuses. I want a camera that doesn't overheat or have heating issues in some situations for 4K video. And I also want a better available lens selection for autofocus. So that's why I wouldn't buy one. But I'm sure there's many viewers out there that would agree with you. And I think there's also quite a few that would agree with me on this. What do you guys think? Where do you stand on this? Are you more a Streets of Vancouver side of the argument? Or more with Matt on this side of the argument on why you may or may not take the a6300? and maybe not and in comparison or in or over the D500. Like when we're looking at it here, would you take the A6300 over the D500? Let us know your thoughts. Which side are you on? Which camera would you buy, the A63 or the D500? Leave it in the comments below. Thanks for your feedback, Streets of Vancouver. My fellow Canadian, always welcome. I always enjoy an opposing side. It makes for interesting debate. And I appreciate that, unlike a lot of people on YouTube, you were able to disagree with me, frame your argument very nicely, very succinctly, make a good argument with being polite, without being rude. You'd be amazed how many people I have to delete the comments because they just go right off the deep end with rudeness and whatever. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.